Over the past 4 years, I've been on a journey of transformation and I've taken myself from skinny on the left at 51 kilos to now, or a few months ago when I was at my heaviest, I weighed 78 kilos. So over the past 4 years, I have gained 27 kilos of lean mass. And in today's video, I'm going to break down through 6 very simple and easy and actionable steps on how you can start to do the same and eventually get the same results and achieve your goals, right? So without further ado, let's get into it. So step number one, you need to, before you do anything else, step number one, you need to build your baseline. What do I mean by building your baseline? Well, I mean you need to actually know where you're starting, otherwise you can't take the correct action steps, because it's all good being consistent and going to the gym and eating food, but if you're not eating the right amount of food, if you're not training properly, for example, and you're not doing the right things and the right steps for you in your position right now, then things won't necessarily work how you want them to. So what I mean by baseline, so what I want you to do is get your first scale weight, right? We need to do this so we can do step two. We need to know where you're starting so we can build up, right? You can't build a house without building the foundations beneath the house. So this is us building that support beam underneath. So in the next 5 steps, we can build the house and it won't fall down, right? So there are 2 specific things I want you to do right now in order to build this baseline. So the first thing is get your scale weight. Next thing is I want you to take progress photos, right? Not only so we can measure your progression over time, but also so you can give yourself motivation, right? Do you want to be looking like this in 6 months down the line? Do you want to be looking the same or even worse? Of course you don't. So it's going to give you that motivation to change. And when things may seem like they're getting tough and you may not necessarily want to go to the gym and do a leg day, for example, then seeing those progress photos and reminding yourself of why you're in this and what that person in that photo wants is so powerful, and that's just going to ignite that fire inside you and you're going to get the work done. So not only will it help us measure our progression, but it will also increase your motivation and desire and remind yourself of why you're doing this in the first place. So that is step number one. We need to build your baseline and carry out those 2 actionable steps before you do anything else. So now we have done step number one and we've got our scale weight. Now we can use that number in order to do step 2, which is find our calorie surplus. If you don't know what a calorie surplus is, it is the make or break to whether you bulk successfully or not. A calorie surplus is an absolute must for bulking, and if you don't necessarily know what it is, it basically just refers to when one eats more than what their body needs normally in order to gain weight. So you eat in excess to what your body would require of you every day, and that will help you in turn gain weight. So let me make this really simple for you. So every single human, me, you, your neighbor, your mum, your dad, your nan, we all have what is called maintenance calories. So if you don't know what this is, it basically just refers to the amount of calories you need to eat every day in order to stay at the same weight. So let's say person X right here has to eat 2,000 calories every single day. That's his maintenance calories. The reason why he would stay at the same weight and maintain if he eats 2,000 calories is because 2,000 calories also naturally leaves his body every single day, right? But he doesn't want to maintain weight, he wants to gain weight. So eating as much as the amount that leaves your body isn't going to do anything because it balances it out, therefore he's going to stay the same. But in order to gain weight, he would want to eat that little bit more, and this little bit more helps you gain weight, right? Because you're consuming more than the amount that leaves your body's got to do something with it, right? So those extra calories are going to be put towards the gym, training, you're going to have increased energy, your strength is going to go up, and it's also going to store as a little bit of fat, but we can minimize that, and that is for another video. So if you do want to stay around for that, then make sure you drop a subscription. But anyways, you want to be eating in a calorie surplus. So in order to find your calorie surplus number, in the top link in the description down below, I have left a calorie calculator where you basically just want to put in your age, your weight, your height, your activity level every week, and then you want to press the green calculate button. And then once you have done that, it is going to show the numbers for maintaining weight and losing weight, but we obviously don't want to do that. We want to gain weight, and just below that it's going to have a little line saying show info for weight gain. you want to click on that, and then in order to be as safe as possible, you want to aim and shoot for eating the amount that says 0.5 kilo weight gain per week. Write that down on a piece of paper. That is now your new aim every single day. So now we have built our baseline, we've got our initial scale weight, we've got our starting point, we've taken our progress photos. The third step we need to do now in order to take action on this is form a weekly or daily meal schedule slash plan. So we need to identify when in our day we can eat our meals, right? So whether you can cook at certain times, whether you need to meal prep for a certain day, right? So you basically just want to look at your daily outline and identify when you work, when you're not necessarily free to eat, when you have breaks, when you wake up and have breakfast or have dinner, and you sort of want to lock in those times to eat your meals. And there's a couple of reasons why we want to do this. So the first one is so we can help regulate our appetite, right? When we eat at the same time every day, we don't have to eat at the exact same time, you know, like 5:05, but within the same hour window every day. What this does is it helps our hormone called ghrelin recognize these patterns of when we're eating, right? And this hormone basically just gets released, which therefore stimulates our appetite and our hunger to eat. And if our body starts to identify that we're eating at the same times, then this ghrelin hormone is going to be released consistently around those times. So it's going to be a lot easier for us to eat consistently. We're going to start to feel hungry at the same times, therefore making life so much easier for us when we're trying to bulk. Because, you know, when we're bulking, we do have to eat quite a bit of food, or don't have to eat loads, but we have to eat more than, you know, you normally would, right? So it just makes things so much easier. And the second reason as to why we want to create rough sort of meal times throughout our day normally is because it's going to help us stay, or well, the likelihood of us staying consistent is going to be a lot higher. And this is something called implementation intentions. So I read a newsletter not long ago, and I've mentioned it in a couple of my previous videos. James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, he wrote in his newsletter about how if someone implements their intentions, so identifies when they're going to do something, what they're going to do, where and when. So for example, when are you going to eat your meal? What are you going to have to cook, right? Do you have to meal prep it? If you know all of this stuff in advance, then you are 2 to 3 times more likely to stick to it, be consistent, not skip meals, and actually get the calories in, right? And this is super, super important because we need to eat these calories and we need to have these meals if we want to gain weight and gain muscle. You are going to be so much more likely to stay consistent compared to someone who just goes with the flow and just doesn't necessarily know when they're going to do anything and they just make it up on the spot. If you have a plan to follow, then you have such an advantage, my friends. So what you want to do is just sort of look at your schedule and look, you know, you want to fill in the gaps, right? When can you eat your meals? And a really good tip, and I can identify 2 meals for you straight away, right? Your pre-workout meal and your post-workout meal. So identify when you want to work out and when you have an hour and a half to 2 hours free every single time you work out or every single day you work out. And around then, so around an hour before you work out, you want to have a pre-workout meal. And then as soon as you can after your workout, you want to have a post-workout meal. And that's 2 meals just like that, easily done, right? So step number 3, you want to form your rough daily meal plan. So, you know, pick rough times you want to aim to have your meals at every single day. So now we can move on to step number 4. And this isn't necessarily an actionable step, but it kind of is, but it's just more of a mindset thing. So you want to be smart about the foods you eat, right? I see so many people saying that they're so full and that they really struggle to eat food whilst they're bulking, and then I ask them what their diet consists of, and then they say they say foods that consists of them working hard and not smart, right? However, you want to work smart and not necessarily hard, right? You want to make things as easy for yourself as possible. You want to be able to do the least to get the maximal results and get the maximal output, right? So what I mean by this in terms of diet is not eat foods that are so big in volume but less in calories, but you want to eat foods that are as little volume as possible and as calorie dense and as calorie packed as possible, right? And in the cards or in the top link in the description or one of the links, I'm going to link the video where I basically talked about my average 4 meals that I usually had all the time during my previous bulk, where I gained 9 kilos in 180 days. And you will see exactly how I implement this minimalistic mindset, right? And that's truly what it is. You want to be as minimal with it and the amount of food you eat as possible. You want to eat the least volume, but you don't, those foods, you want them to have the most calories possible, right? So a mindset you want to have when you look at your foods, or you look at your protein shake, or you look at your pasta, right? You want to think, how can I make this more in terms of calories, but not more, so like keep the volume as minimal as possible, right? So that is step number 4. Just have that mental note, and sort of question yourself, and always be iterating, and always be improving, and always be looking to make your meals more minimal and as minimal as you possibly can. So now moving on to the penultimate step. So step number 5 out of 6, right? And this is the final step for diet. So now we've identified everything. So our surplus, to picking our meal times, to acknowledging how we got to be smart about the foods we eat. Now we can actually select the foods we want to eat, right? Ideally, we just want to rotate like a few meals for our different times. So for example, for breakfast, have like 2 to 3 different options of what you want to have, or for lunch, etc., etc. Just have different options, have a bit of variety, because you don't want to get bored of food, and you always want to have backups, right? And it's really important, because you don't want to eat foods that you don't enjoy, right? Someone may say chicken, rice and broccoli is the most optimal, right? But in my opinion, what's the most optimal for your gains is what you enjoy to eat the most, right? And having having a bit of freedom and giving yourself a bit of liberty with your diet and the food to eat, especially on the bulk, isn't that bad, right? If you crave a pizza on a Friday, have a pizza on a Friday, right? It's going to help you bulk, it's going to satisfy your cravings, and because it's satisfied your cravings, you'll probably be more likely to eat healthier from then on, right? So, having that liberty, that freedom, eating those pleasurable foods at times can be really important for maintaining consistency over time. And as one says, in order to be disciplined, it also helps to be ill-disciplined at times as well. So making sure that you pick your favorite meals, you have some junk food or some pleasurable food, or um, you know, you you know, you have foods that you like, right? That's basically what I'm trying to get at. So number 5, just pick foods you like and eat as much of it as you possibly can. So now we move on to the final step. So step number 6, and this is, you want to pair all of that knowledge and all of those steps with training and working out, right? So you want to stick to one workout plan, you want to push yourself as hard as possible, and you want to be looking at increasing the weight every time an exercise starts to feel easy, right? So let's go back to the workout plan. So I would recommend 3 workout programs for you guys. The first one would be push-pull legs, the second one would be full body, and the third one would be upper lower. So with push-pull legs, I would recommend you do that 3 times a week if you're a beginner. So Monday you'd do push, Wednesday you'd do pull, and Friday you'd do legs. Workout split number 2, full body. You can either do this 2 to 3 times a week. Basically just consists of training your entire body in a workout, right? So you, for example, if you do this 2 times a week, you could maybe do that on Tuesday and Friday, or if you do it 3 times a week, just like push-pull legs, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Simply done. And with upper lower, the final split that I'd recommend, you could do this 4 times a week. So you do 2 upper days and you do 2 lower days. So you do upper day on Monday, then lower day on Tuesday, then you rest, and then you do upper day on Thursday, and then lower day on Friday, and then you rest over the weekend, and then you repeat. So 4 times a week, pretty simple, very easy to follow. You want to make sure you stick to these workout plans as well. There is nothing worse than a program hopper and a shiny object syndrome person, right? Which basically means that they just follow the crowd and that they're a sheep, right? And they just do whatever someone says when a new thing comes around, right? So for example, when someone says like, this is the best workout split of 2025, they immediately just resort to doing that, and they completely drop what they were doing before, even if it may have been working, right? The reason why you don't want to do this is because you want to think about it like learning a skill. If you give 1 week learning Spanish, and you only give French 1 week, and you only give German 1 week, you're not going to get good at learning any of the languages because you haven't given yourself enough time. And it's the exact same thing with a workout plan. You need to give yourself time so A, you can get your body adapted to the routine every week, right? You can actually practice the exercises and get better at the technique, and you actually give yourself time to increase strength and progressive overload on the exercises. So that's one thing, right? You want to make sure you're sticking to your workout plan. You want to make sure you're training hard. So do you want to leave the gym floor knowing that you have one more rep? You know, I definitely know I won't want to do that. So I push my limits. I make sure I leave the gym floor knowing that I gave 100%. And as I said, you want to make sure you're progressively overloading. So this basically just refers to increasing the difficulty of your workouts by increasing the weight, doing one more rep than you did last time. For example, if you did 7 reps on bench press with 60 kilos or 135 pounds, go for 8 next time, right? And just increasing the intensity. So just training harder, pushing your limits, and as I just said, not being satisfied with last week and wanting more this week, being better than yesterday, doing better than last session, not leaving the gym, you know, without giving yourself 100%, right? So that marks the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I really appreciate it if you are still here. If you do want my help beyond these YouTube videos with carrying out these steps in more detail, and you want some free coaching from me, I have a free community that's going to be the top link in the description down below. I would absolutely love to have you in there. We have 250 plus people in there, and I'd absolutely love to have you as the newest member. If you want to stay around on the YouTube channel and you like the video, make sure you drop a like, drop a comment down below. And if you want to stay around, I upload every Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, so a subscription would go a long, long way. Now, I'm going to go have my lunch, consume my protein, and I will see you guys in the next video.